Hello, everybody. We're gonna get started at 6. I'm just, or maybe 6:05. Give some people a few more minutes to join. This is a live grow along that I'm doing. It's the first time I'm going live. I wanted to teach how to grow heirloom tomatoes. Specifically, they're my favorite thing to grow, and they're also, in my opinion, one of the hardest crops you could grow. But you learn a lot of gardening skills when you learn how to properly grow tomatoes that you can apply to all the crops that you grow. So it's a little bit challenging, but you will also learn a lot. And obviously, if you have questions about anything else going on in your garden, feel free to ask. This isn't just solely about tomatoes, but today I'm going to be starting my tomato seeds and sowing them with you. And there is a button in my bio for a grow along email. You can click on it to subscribe, and I will email you more information, like list of supplies that I recommend, the varieties that I'm growing this season, and the schedule for this live TikTok grow along. We're going to check in periodically with each other so I can see your progress, see what's going on, help you with any issues you might be having. So we're just going to wait a few more minutes here. I'm going to start cutting holes in my solo cups because this is how I like to sow my heirloom tomatoes. Excuse me, guys. Again, this is the first time I've ever gone live. I don't know. Can someone say hi in the comments so I could see what that looks like? Type something in so I can see what that looks like. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, I see it. We're gonna wait a few more minutes, I guess. Awesome. Thank you for letting me know. How many of you are here in Florida? Because I'm in Florida, Zone 9B, and growing tomatoes in Florida is very difficult. We're like the opposite of the rest of the country. So ignore any of the directions on the seed packets or general information about when to start your seeds and when to grow tomatoes if you are in Florida specifically. This also applies to the warmer zones, like parts of Zone 8, 9, 10, 11, all of you. The best time to grow tomatoes is actually fall, winter, and spring. So yes, I am harvesting heirloom tomatoes in January when the weather is like 40s, 50s, 60s. It does not get cold enough to actually kill my tomato plants. But I'm in Zone 9B. There are people who are, I'm in Orlando, by the way, Orlando, Florida, who live like 20 minutes from me, but they get much colder, frost and things in the wintertime than I do that could potentially cause damage. If you're in Zone 8, definitely you have a few nights that go below 35 degrees. 35 degrees is where I would worry. But as this grow along progresses and we get closer to wintertime, I'll be talking a lot more about, cold weather protection, what to do, when to be alarmed. I have never seen cold damage on my tomatoes. They make it through. We're starting seeds now, the middle of July, with the intent to transplant in September, probably around the first or second week of September. And they will start producing, depending on the variety. Obviously, the smaller the tomato, cherries and things like that, will start producing for you much sooner, like December, around there. The bigger sized tomatoes, I started harvesting slicers around January and February, but the bigger, like my big tomatoes or my big paste tomatoes, usually March, April, and May. That's when I'll start harvesting all that, just to give you an idea. So they will grow the whole winter. You will have huge adult size mature plants by the time, the end of December, January, when it does get really cold here in these zones 8, 9, 10, 11. So it's not enough to kill your plants. They're nice size mature plants. They're going to survive, okay? the only time I ever got cold damage on my tomatoes was actually this year. Was one of the coldest cold fronts we've ever had here in Florida. It was like the middle of January. I don't know if you all remember that. It also killed a lot of my mango blossoms. So, but luckily I had another flush of blossoms. But definitely was one of the few times I actually saw like damage to some of my plants. And some of my tomatoes did get cold damage, but it wasn't enough to kill the plant. And it didn't like severely hinder the plant or delay its growth or put it in shock or something like that. They were fine. But that's my garden. Please, when I started gardening, I had a book, like a calendar planner for the whole year. And I used to write when every cold front came and how cold it got. So in my zone 9B, that we only get like 3 or 4 cold fronts the whole winter. And it never got below like 35. And I also write down what plants were affected. So that way you know, if you have to go and cover everything or not. And nothing ever got affected until that cold front that came middle of January of this year. The temperatures dropped to the like 30 and below, and I actually got some damage. So you have to know your garden, and that just takes experience and that takes time, but definitely taking notes and keeping track of that for yourself is very helpful. So that's how I know we can grow tomatoes straight through the winter. While everyone's covered in snow, I'm harvesting my beautiful tomatoes. So anyways, it's 6:04. I'm going to wait one more minute here and we'll get started. I'm going to start cutting some holes in the bottom of my solo cups. These are 18-ounce solo cups. I go and buy a huge pack from Sam's Club because I use these a lot for tomatoes, peppers, bigger size squashes, cucumbers. They benefit really by just starting them from seed straight up in a solo cup, because then you don't have to pot up. I don't like to waste my time doing things twice if I can avoid that. I am probably going to grow like 100 plants of tomatoes. I'm not kidding. 30, 40, 50 different varieties. I'm obsessed. So if I could save time potting up, I definitely will, and that will definitely be helpful. So I start them in these solo cups. They will last in these solo cups for 2 months, which is more than enough time. Your plants should be a nice big transplant size by 2 months. So yeah, so you want to decide when do you want to actually put your tomatoes in the ground. Backtrack 2 months, around there, 6 to 8 weeks, right? That's when you're going to start your seeds. So for us here in Florida, September is a huge planting month for me. I put in my fall garden, and my winter stuff, like the colder stuff, I will put more in like in October. So that's like the greens, lettuces, bok choys, all those like type of winter greens. Really, you can wait a little bit later in October. But anyways, so start cutting holes at the bottom of your solo cups if you haven't already. And then we'll get started. Or well, we are getting started. It's 6:06. We got our cups, right? Well, I highly recommend that you use a potting mix or soil mix, especially made for seed starting. A lot of people use compost, or you go dig out, dirt from your garden, whatever. And it works. I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but if you want the best germination and you want the healthiest transplants, it's best to use a sterile growth medium. So that would be the potting mixes and stuff like that that are made specifically for seed starting because they're sterile. Compost, soil from your garden, all that has bacteria in it. It has molds, funguses, whatever that will grow and can kill your seedlings. So especially here in Florida or warmer climates, it rains a lot here. It's humid. The humidity alone in the air allows for spores, for funguses, molds, whatever, to circulate in the air and land on your plants, grow on them, all that very, very quickly. So, using sterile potting mix is very important. I used to make my own for many, many years by just mixing equal parts of perlite, you can use vermiculite, peat moss, coco coir, those type of products, whatever, just mix it. It's fine. and a little bit of some worm castings in there for some like natural mild type of fertilizer to give the seedlings a boost. And that worked great. You can buy all these products, mix a big batch in a wheelbarrow, and you'll have a lot for a long time. However, when COVID started, I don't know what happened. I couldn't find peat moss like anymore. Even now I still don't see it. Like I used to buy it at Home Depot all the time. My local Home Depot just, I don't know, it's not there. So luckily I am close to an area of Florida called Apopka, which is actually like the nursery capital of the world. They grow all like your tropicals and house plants and all this stuff and tons of things. So there's a company there, it's called BWI Companies, that sells fertilizers, all kinds of stuff to the public as well. So I am very fortunate to be close enough to them that they recommended to me actually this potting mix. It's called Pro Mix. And it pretty much came out to the same price as if I was to mix my own and like buy everything separately. So this stuff is great. This is what it looks like. As you can see, it's very fluffy. Nothing is compacted. You want fluffy soil that the roots for your seedlings can easily go into, dive in there and start spreading and grow well. So very fluffy and something sterile is what I highly recommend. But again, use whatever you can. If you don't have this stuff, use whatever you can. You can certainly start seeds with compost. It's just going to be maybe a little bit more challenging. But please don't let not having the correct supplies or recommended supplies deter you from growing anything in your garden. So anyways, you fill your solo cups with your growth medium. Let me put a little bit more in here. Also behind me, this is my setup for starting seeds. I sell seeds on Etsy, so I have to be a little bit more professional. Like I feel it anyways, and it makes my life easier when I'm, trying to grow my plants so I can later harvest a lot of seeds from them. So growing healthy, beautiful plants from seed is very important to me. So I have a shelving unit. It is 4 feet long. It has 6 shelves. I also talked about this in one of my TikTok videos. These are not grow lights. These are shop lights. Grow lights can get pretty expensive. Shop lights, I bought these from Walmart like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago for like $15 each. I don't know if the price is the same anymore, but shop lights are the way to go. These are 4-foot shop lights. The most important thing is to get something that has high lumens. Look at the lumens number. These are 5,500 lumens. I've seen 5,000. Just get something at minimum 5,000 lumens. That's the brightness of the light. So I just attach these to these shelves using, man, my mind just went blank. Zip ties. My entire garden is held together by zip ties, I swear. I don't know anything about tools, so zip ties is my tool. So zip tie them onto your shelving unit. This height is great. It will give your seedlings, whether it be tomatoes or not, very nice, bright, direct light. And that will help them grow quickly, grow healthy, and they won't be leggy and thin. If they're leggy, they're reaching for light because there's not enough. So that makes them just leggy and thin. You don't want that. That's not exactly the healthiest thing, especially for tomatoes. Tomatoes, you want a thicker, long stem because when it comes to the transplant time, you're going to bury actually about half of that stem into the soil. And we'll talk about that as we get closer to transplanting time. But that helps. If you've grown tomatoes before, you probably noticed like hairy pieces along the stem or white little knobby things. That's completely normal. That is places where roots can grow out of, actually. So if it touches soil or gets covered with soil, it will grow roots all over that stem. And so when it comes to transplanting time, you will want a nice long stem because you're going to bury half of it, and that will create a bigger root system to make your plants healthier and get more nutrition and all of that it needs to grow in size and mass to output a very good production of tomatoes. So light is very important for that. I'm in a covered patio, so I am doing this outdoors, but I just, you can do this outdoors, that's fine. Just in an area where rain won't fall on all your seeds, wash them out of your cups and your trays, and also deposit fungus, molds, all that kind of stuff on your seedlings as well. So just put it in a place where you know the rain isn't going to disrupt it or destroy your plants or something. So this covered patio is great. It's very warm here. Every day is 95. It's crazy. It's the middle of summer. So warmth is another really important factor when it comes to starting tomatoes from seeds. The tomatoes will germinate, the seed will germinate very quickly, like usually for me within 3 days. Very quickly it'll pop out of the ground and start germinating if it's given ample light and warmth. So if you're starting indoors, I highly recommend you get some heat mats. I will sometimes start tomatoes indoors during the winter time for like a second succession sowing, because in Florida we grow tomatoes fall, winter, and spring. That's like 9 months in a row of a growing season. That's a very, very long growing season. We're very lucky for that, so take advantage. You can fit 2 succession sowings of tomatoes in that. You know, we're going to plant some in September, and I plant some again even sometimes in January. The whole game plan with the warmer climate zone 8, 9, 10, 11 with growing tomatoes is to harvest your tomatoes before summer comes, because when summer comes, all those rains, the humidity, all of that brings in a lot of diseases, a lot of pests. It's just so much for the tomatoes to handle, and tomatoes are probably one of the most susceptible crops to pests and diseases to begin with. So summer is a lot. A lot of my tomato plants just literally die and wilt overnight. Like there's nothing you can do. You can spray the heck out of them if you want, chemicals, all that. I personally don't do that. I don't like spraying for leaf disease, except for hydrogen peroxide in water sometimes, if I notice that the molds and stuff are kind of getting out of control. But that's pretty much it. I don't want to use anything synthetic, chemicals, whatever. I try to always use organic products and stuff like that in my gardening. So summertime is not great for tomatoes. If you manage to get that plant to survive somehow, some of mine have survived, they, you'll notice it kind of like stops growing. It's not really doing much. It definitely stopped flowering, because tomatoes, once temperatures get 90 degrees and above, it actually messes up the flowering process for them. Like they won't flower, and if they do, they'll drop a lot of those flowers. It's just too hot. And it also damages the pollen. So they have, even if it does flower, they have issues cross-pollinating, you know, and you're not going to get any fruit. So they're really, to me personally, in my opinion, there is no reason, no smart reason to grow tomatoes during the summer in our type of climates. They're just going to catch a lot of diseases. Those diseases, they're going to be a host plant for those diseases, and it's in your garden proliferating or causing those diseases to continue to spread and grow. So it's honestly better to just yank them out. By this point, you should have harvested loads and loads of tomatoes. You pop them in September or January, whatever. You've harvested pretty much the most that you're going to get out of them anyways. So also, as the plant ages, they do decline in their production. So it's just not very smart. Pull them out, solarize that soil, prepare that bed for next season or planting something else. So yeah, sometimes I do get a cherry tomato variety, usually, that will survive. It'll stop growing, it'll stop flowering, but it'll survive, and then when the temperatures drop again, usually at the end of September or so, it'll start flowering and producing again. The cherry types really, they're more disease resistant and pest resistant in general, and they're very productive. So they, you know, you might get lucky and get a cherry plant that will survive. But I've personally have never had like the bigger size plums, slicers, beefsteaks, none of those make it through summer, in my opinion. It's my garden. Some people in Florida have messaged me and said, "Hey, my tomatoes are still producing." I'm like, well, you're very lucky. I don't know. We're in the same zone too. You know, every garden is different. It truly is. So if that's working out for you, great job. Everglades tomatoes, yes, I have those too. Everglades tomatoes, they grow year round here. They came from South America and they naturalized here in Florida. They literally grow in the Everglades. So it's a great crop. if you are in the south, warmer climates, I don't have to spray it. I don't fertilize it. I don't even water them. They are very hard to kill. But even right now, middle of July, I've noticed my Everglades tomatoes, they're not flowering anymore. They're just sitting there. They're not even growing. Like, seriously, no tomatoes like the heat like that. They are more mild type of crop. Like, I believe they come from like the Andes mountains, like Chile and stuff like that. Like higher altitude. You know, they grow very well in the Mediterranean, and those kind of climates are a little bit more mild with their temperatures, and they're drier too. So, you know, growing them here in the south or whatever with our summer is just too much for them. But if you get one to survive, you're very lucky. You're very lucky. But yeah, Everglades, I highly promote Everglades tomatoes. I have seeds for that in my Etsy shop because I recommend that to everybody. You should grow Everglades tomatoes at least once. Hi, welcome. So yeah. So here's my solo cup, 18-ounce solo cup. You cut your holes in the bottom, fill it up with your sterile, your sterile growth medium. And then I get a pen because I mark everything. I keep track of all my varieties. I don't not like not knowing what I'm growing. I'm very particular about that. So I like to write right on the cup the variety that I'm sowing in here, right? Very easy. I mean, if you want, you can also buy these like plant tags. They're on Amazon, real cheap too, but I just write it right here on the cups. Everglades tomatoes, they're not very tall. They might get like 1 foot tall. They like to sprawl on the ground and ramble and like get large like horizontally. So one of those plants, they will take over a whole like section. They will, but they're short, if that makes sense. I actually really like using them as kind of like as a ground cover in spots of my garden where I'm not really growing anything. They will ramble, cover that whole area, and prevent the weeds from growing through. And it's something edible, so you can eat them. Even though they're super tiny, there's still a lot of things you can do with them. Throw them in your salads. I like to collect a lot of them and roast them in the oven and then like turn it into some kind of like tomato sauce too. So there's a lot that you can do with it. All right, so if you guys have any questions, I've been talking since 6 o'clock, so I'm sorry. I don't know if you've missed maybe something you really wanted to know about. Just ask me. I am starting tomatoes. Like I said, this is like a tomato grow along type theme. But if you have questions about other things in your garden, you know, go ahead and ask me. That's cool too. We can talk about anything. But anyways, so my tomato seeds, I have a video where I show you guys how I save my tomato seeds if you want to see that. I use the fermentation process because if you cut it, you know, you cut into a tomato, you notice the seeds are kind of covered like in a little gel sac. That gel sac can actually harbor diseases, and if you plant that seed later in your garden, that disease can like grow out of there. You've never gotten tomatoes. First off, what zone are you in? Where are you located? Or you can message me with your questions too. If you've never got tomatoes, you know, it could be the time of year. If it's too hot, they won't flower properly. Like right now, they're not going to flower properly. Or it could be, I mean, I have grown some before where they just keep growing and they just don't flower. It could be an imbalance of like phosphorus or potassium, which are triggers for making them flower as well. So you might want to implement some of that in your fertilizer. I use a single shop light. It's a good question. Here's my setup. Actually, this is one shop light. This is a 4-foot long shelving unit. This is a 4-foot long shop light, and I just zip tie it to the middle of, you know, each level here. And I just have one on each level. And that's plenty of light. It really is. Okay. Sorry guys as I read. But Yeah, this season I had two Green Giants heirloom tomatoes. One of them produced quite a few tomatoes. The other one didn't, and I don't really know why, because they're in the same soil, same fertilizer, everything. Sometimes in some years you just have a bad tomato year. Like one variety just didn't like it that year. I don't know. And then you try again the next year and it produces a ton. This happened to me with Black Beauty this year. I have tried to grow the Black Beauty variety for like 3 years and she's never happy. That is one of the most finicky tomatoes that varieties that I've ever grown. But this year, she gave me a ton of tomatoes. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Tons of tomatoes. It's actually one of my most watched TikTok videos is me harvesting some of the black, because they were really, really black and beautiful tomatoes. And she just decided to give me tomatoes this year. So just because you grow a tomato one year and it doesn't do good for you doesn't mean that it's bad seed or it was a bad variety or you're bad at growing tomatoes. It's for whatever reason, it maybe just wasn't happening that year. So try again, try, and try again. I am definitely going to try the Green Giant again, because Green Giant, it's a huge green tomato when ripe. And the flavor is said to be similar to Sun Gold or Sun Sugar. If you've ever tried those two, oh man, you have to grow those at least once. Everyone loves them. The flavor is phenomenal. It's one of my favorites, except it's a hybrid. And I try not to grow hybrids because I really love my heirlooms. Okay, I love my heirlooms. You don't put this. No, I don't. So I'm starting seeds in these solo cups, and I put them in these trays so it's a little bit easier for me to grab a whole bunch of them at one time, and they stay right there. So right there. But when you start seeds, it is said to keep the light low, and as the seedling grows up, you move the light up. So if you keep it low, that's fine too. Hold on, guys. Where do I get my fruit trees? Um, okay, I don't know who, Moonshiner? Did you ask where do I get my fruit trees? Um, are you in Florida, Moonshiner? Whoever asked that question, are you in Florida? Because I'm in Florida and I could tell you tons of people that I get fruit trees from. Wherever you are located, please go to a local nursery and get your fruit trees. Don't go to, oh, I'm sorry. Go to your local nurseries, okay? They know what will grow right in your area. Don't go to Home Depot, Lowe's, or Walmart. They sell generic tree varieties that kind of grow all over the country, but maybe not really well for your area. A great example of that is blueberries. So I go into Lowe's all the time, and they have tons of different blueberry varieties. But blueberries require a certain amount of chill hours in order to flower and get fruit from. Some of them require 400 chill hours every winter. Chill hours is just the amount of hours of a certain temperature that your area gets. You can Google it and put your zip code in and look up your area if you want to know like how many cold chill hours you get. And then there's some blueberry varieties that only need like 100 or 150. In my area, I only get 200 or less cold chill hours every winter. So I have to Google when I'm in there the blueberry variety to look up the chill hours and figure out if this will actually grow and give me blueberries. And most of the time when I do that in Lowe's, they don't. They're the ones that require high chill hour amounts. They don't grow here. So please go to your local nurseries. I go to a lot of backyard nurseries, like people like me, small businesses, not the big places. I know a lot of them here in Central Florida. Nick's Edibles, I probably got almost all of my fruit trees from him. You can find him on Facebook. He has a Facebook group called Nick's Edibles. He's in St. Cloud, Florida, and he has a lot of stuff. Alicia's Backyard Nursery is another one. You can find her on Facebook. I've never been there yet. I have to go. But she's another backyard nursery with a lot of great stuff. And if you want to grow apples in Florida, I talk about this a lot because I'm amazed. Generally, apples don't do well here. They require a certain amount of chill hours that we just don't get here in Florida. But there is a nursery. They're called Stone River Nursery. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram. They're in Orlando, Florida, 10 minutes from me. and he grafts his own heirloom apple varieties I've never seen in any of our local nurseries, onto a special rootstock from some university, I don't know, that forces them to require less chill hours and adapt better to our soil, our sandy soils here in Florida. So, and he has tons of pictures of the apple trees he's growing in his backyard and he's harvesting. So those are probably like my top 3 people that I would recommend. There's other nurseries in Kissimmee. I don't know the name off the top of my head, but they're relatively new and they have a lot of good stuff too. Lucas Nursery in Orlando is a big nursery, not a little person like me, business, backyard, whatever. But they do have a nice variety, and they have stuff that grow well in our zone, in our areas. My favorite summer crop, that's a hard question. My favorite crop is tomatoes, but it is not a summer crop where I'm at. It's a fall, winter, and spring crop. My favorite summer crop is probably the Tromboncino rapicante. It's a huge baseball bat size squash. It's obnoxiously huge, which is why I love it. And anytime someone sees that in my garden, they're like, what the heck is that? I have seeds for that in my Etsy shop if you want to try growing it. It's a fantastic food source. It produces a lot of food. For a family of 4, you only need like 1 or 2 of those plants. And the other thing is Seminole pumpkins. If you're in Florida, if you're in the South, zones 8, 9, 10, 11, you should grow Seminole pumpkins. They're very heat tolerant, disease resistant. It's a native crop to the United States. It was grown by the Native American Indians. So very well-known old heirloom variety. I think all of you all should grow them at least once. Nursery again for the apples, Stone River Nursery. They're located in Orlando, Florida. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. He has accounts under the same name, Stone River Nursery. Tell him Jara sent you. I sent him a lot of people. He's great, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and he will spend time with you, like giving you a lot of details, expert knowledge on how to grow apples successfully in Florida. All right, so keep the questions coming. I talked a lot at the beginning, so if you're coming in, joining later, I'm sorry, maybe missed maybe some information you want to know, but basically I have a shelf set up. I got these shop lights. The most important thing about the shop lights is to get a light that is 5,000 lumens or more. I got these at Walmart for $15 each. About 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know if they're still the same price at Walmart, but definitely way cheaper than grow lights, guys. Don't buy the grow lights. You don't have to. So I have the shop light set up. I start my tomatoes in solo cups, so I just cut little holes at the bottom. This will house your tomato plant for 2 months. So don't waste your time potting up. I mean, you can if you want. You can start them in little 72 cell trays. That is a good question as well. Do I pre-moisten the seed mix? I'm sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear the cars. I am in a neighborhood. This is my house, and they get really loud. But yes, a lot of the seed mixes, seed starting mixes, or any mixes with stuff like peat moss are actually hydrophobic. So if you put water into it, it kind of like doesn't absorb it. Or initially it has like an issue like absorbing it. It is a good idea to, after you fill your, seed trays, cups, whatever, but before you put your seeds in, to pre-moisten this as much as you can. So I will fill up a lot of cups typically, and I'll fill a tray, because I use these trays just to make it easier for me to move a bunch of cups at once. And then once I have this tray full, I will take it outside and use a low setting of my hose sprayer and fill them up really good with water to make sure they are saturated, and then going forward they'll accept water a lot easier. It's just when it's new and dry that it's hydrophobic and kind of has a tendency to like not absorb the water. Also, when seed starting, these trays don't have holes in it, and that is great because you don't want to water your seedlings from the top, because that water sitting on the surface here will cause mold, funguses, bacteria to grow on the surface, and they'll eat through the base of your plant. So if you've had an issue with like dampening off, like your seedlings are doing great and then all of a sudden they like flopped over and they're dying and rotting like at the stem, that's dampening off. So it is advised not to water any of your plants, really. This goes for plants in pots, plants in raised beds, whatever. Avoid wetting the leaves and the surface like as much as possible. So I use a lot of drip irrigation with like flat drip tape tubes, so I don't have to water from above. Same thing with seeds. If you get trays like this that don't have holes in it, you will fill this with the water and then set your seed cup in there, and it will absorb the water from the bottom through osmosis, pretty much. So that is the best way, the professional way of watering like your seedlings, plants in pots, whatever. If you grow houseplants a lot, I have tons of houseplants too. I grow everything. You know, you might also see it a lot where people say bottom feed your plants. So yeah, and great thing about that too is like if you want to fertilize your seedlings, you can put liquid fertilizer in that water and it'll uptake those nutrients as well. So just a lot of benefits for doing it the right way and correctly. So anyway, so yeah, here's my cup. I get my marker, write the variety right on the cup, and I'm good to go. This is Japanese triplay. This is one of my favorites. It's a larger size plum tomato like this. It is considered a black tomato. It has like an earthy, umami savoriness to it, also a little bit of sweetness. The reason why I love it so much though is because it produces too much, like massive amounts of pretty large sized plum, pear shaped kind of tomatoes. I was blown away by just the amounts. I had like 50 of them on one plant, you know, once, and I'm just constantly harvesting them. So if you want to get a lot of harvest, awesome tomato variety grow. I do have seeds in my Etsy shop. Seeds from the same tomato plant that gave me that much production too. How many seeds do I put in each container? Okay, so I put two seeds in each container. Typically I have almost 100% germination success. So those two seedlings, seeds most likely are going to sprout for me, and I know this. And I will, if both of them grow for me, I will plant both of them together like this right into the planting hole at transplant time. Yeah, so as a home grower, you can cram things in much closer than what you think or whatever is advised on the back of a seed packet or whatever. The information on the back of a seed packet is geared towards like commercial farming, right? A home backyard grower, you probably take care of your soil better, you're composting, you're fertilizing better, you know, you're just taking better, tender, loving care of your plants, right? So you can cram a lot more together. As a guide, like for me, when I started getting started with gardening, I kind of looked at the you know, what was advised through square foot gardening, right? Square foot gardening techniques. You can find charts of it, and it'll tell you like how many seeds of whatever crop you can fit in a little square foot. So like for beans, for example, you can cram 9 bean seeds in a square foot and you'll be okay. So that's a great starting point to kind of learn, you know, how much can you really cram in there. So now, now as an expert gardener, I do square foot gardening and then some. So I'm still cramming more. I haven't had any issues with anything. The only crop that I have seen, yes, it really does need a little bit of space, are broccoli and cauliflower, because they need a bigger size. The bigger the plant size is before it shoots out, it starts forming the head of the cauliflower or broccoli. That means you're going to get a bigger head. So the bigger that plant is and the thicker the stalk is, the bigger that head of broccoli is going to be. And if you cram them too close, the plants stay smaller and you get smaller heads. So I have seen that. Like, I have experienced that. I do believe that that truly happens. They really benefit more from like 2 feet apart from each other better for that crop. But I have never seen an issue with anything else. 80% sand. I'm in Florida. We're just sand. You can do it, okay? I have raised beds. Initially I brought in the soil. So I had like actual garden soil brought in for me, because I thought, yeah, how am I going to grow stuff in sand? It doesn't hold water well. It doesn't hold nutrients well. When it rains, it basically, all the nutrients wash right down into our our water systems, or our water table, right? It just washes away. So if you could do that, that's great. But what I've found, I have a second garden now because I'm trying to expand. My garden, this is my home. I have, I think, a quarter acre of an entire lot. My house occupies half of that. And between my HOA not letting me grow stuff in the front of my house, I'm left with just the back, and only probably like half of my backyard is what I actually grow on. That's less than 1/16 of an acre, I estimate. So I wanted to grow more, and I'm very fortunate that my aunt, who lives close to me in St. Cloud, Florida, has 2.5 acres of land that she said, do whatever you want. So you might see some of my videos and stuff. When I say second garden, I'm talking about the one in St. Cloud, Florida that I've just started constructing this year. That one is purely sand. I don't have enough money to build raised beds and bring in soil and all that. It is acres of land that I get to play with. So I have decided that is, I'm going to grow in our sand, in our native sand, and just see what happens. And so far, I'm actually extremely impressed that it's working. I didn't think it was going to, but things are going fine. They're going fine. I am fertilizing them. I use pretty much solely organic granular fertilizer. I like Job's or Epsoma, especially for tomatoes. Okay, Epsoma has a tomato tone that I use for my tomatoes a lot. So I found it's fine. The only thing is you're going to need to make sure you're watering properly, because the water does seep out of that sand very quickly. So try something like flat drip tapes. Don't get the foamy kind of drip tubes or whatever. That stuff does not last very long. That foam breaks apart. It gets cut easily. I have transitioned to flat drip tape, and I actually have an Amazon link in my bio if you want to see what I'm talking about. They're flat and they are coated in like a nylon fabric. They're much harder to cut. They last longer, and they lay out easier for me. So I have that going on at the other garden in sand. So I know that they're getting watered. And it's working out great. Like, I have some Seminole squash growing there, and calabaza squash. We have pigeon peas over there, lots of pigeon peas. My family's from the Dominican Republic, so we eat a lot of pigeon peas, actually. And I tested out some cherry tomatoes because I was like, I don't know if my tomatoes will grow in sand. You know, they do require a good soil, a lot of compost, a lot of nutrition. So I tested with some cherry tomatoes because cherry tomatoes are very disease resistant, pest resistant. They can handle a lot of changes in climate and stuff like that. And guess what? They produced great for me. I grew berries, crazy cherry, black strawberry, sun sugar, cream sausage, all of them, and yellow pear over there. All of them grew great. I love wood chips. I started my garden with wood chips. I love them. And ideally, if I could recommend like the number one way that I recommend to start a garden, it would be to lay a couple layers of cardboard and toss a ton of compost on top of that, and then wood chips. I got quite a few loads of wood chips here at my house in Orlando over the years. I put it all, it's everywhere. I love wood chips. It has transformed my sandy soil. The first couple layers are nice, rich, composted material at this point. But I have put in another request for the wood chips through Chip Drop. That's how I got them for my new garden in St. Cloud, because I was like, I'm going to get mountains of wood chips and spread it all over all these acres, do like the full permaculture food forest thing over there. But since February, I have not got a bite on that request. No one is bringing me wood chips there. I keep refreshing the request because I'm like, please, one day I'll get some, right? Yeah, wood chips are awesome. They are an awesome resource. So literally, I have started beds, not tilling, not doing anything, not even removing the grass. I put like 2 or 3 layers of cardboard, and you can get a lot of cardboard from your grocery stores, because I went to Publix, and they will break apart their boxes and compact them, and just before they're about to throw them in their compacting machines or whatever, you ask if you can get some, and they are happy to give that stuff away to you. I don't know if they have to pay to dispose of it or whatever, but they gave me like car trunk loads of cardboard. So 2 to 3 layers of cardboard, that will smother out all of the weeds, okay? Even like crabgrass and stuff like that we have here in Florida. And then you will throw a couple layers of compost, wood chips, whatever. You can plant Well, you have to let the weeds kind of like die underneath. So let it sit like that for a couple weeks, right? But the cardboard allows water to seep through. And I just take like a little garden shovel and punch a hole through that cardboard, and I plant something in there and I'm good to go. Titan sunflower seeds. I don't know. There's so many seed sellers online, guys. There's so many. I have seeds in my Etsy shop too, not for Titan, but for Mammoth, which I believe gets pretty big like Titan, and also makes really big heads that are, you know, the big size sunflower seeds that are edible by humans, and all that too. But I haven't grown Titan yet. I have bought seeds from the dollar store too. Everywhere. Everywhere at some point I have bought seeds. I've traded with people. You know, whatever. Yeah, you can find those online. I don't know anyone right now that comes to the top of my head that might have some of those in particular. And I'm not sure if Titan is an heirloom or hybrid. So if it's a hybrid, I'm not growing it. I like to save my seeds and collect them, so I am a huge proponent of the heirloom varieties. But anyways, I mean, you could go to check out whatever stores. They might, you know, just give you your the cardboard boxes. So here, I'm gonna start just planting a seed. You know, like I said, I put 2 seeds in each one. I'm not concerned to have 2 seedlings pop up. I'm not gonna pull one out to let the other like grow bigger or whatever. Not with tomatoes. Like I literally I just put them there. Tomato seeds are small, right? Like the smaller seeds, you don't need to bury them a lot, okay? The smaller the seed, the less you have to bury it. So I just barely like press the seed into the surface and just cover it. Like that's it. Don't, you know, bury it in there too deep or whatever. And you're good to go. So I do expect both of these seeds to germinate because normally I get very high germination with the setup and everything that I do. And I'm going to get 2 seedlings. And I'm going to plant both of those in the transplant hole in about 6 to 8 weeks. And as they grow, I do prune my tomatoes. I do recommend pruning to maintain size. Pruning is not going to help you get more or less tomatoes per se. It's just a way of controlling the size, especially in a smaller garden. The tomato varieties that I'm growing this season, I think I'm growing like over 50 varieties. It's insane. That's a lot. You can, in my bio, there is a button for an email sign up for this heirloom tomato growing grow along session. If you click that and add your email in there, I can send you a list of all the varieties that I'm growing in case you want to grow like the same ones that I'm growing this season. I can send you that. I also have a list of supplies that I recommend and the schedule for this TikTok live grow along. So at the beginning, we're gonna check in with each other again next week. So hopefully your seedlings, if you're starting seeds today, will have sprouted by next week, and we'll look at them and make sure everything's going good. And then we will follow up with each other periodically, so I can see your progress, answer any questions. We'll all be going through the same thing at the same time, so I think that would be really helpful. But as the season progresses and the plants mature, we'll see each other less and less, or check in less and less, because there's really not much going on at that point. And hopefully, you know, I can start seeing your beautiful harvests, you know. I do sell a lot of my tomato seeds in my Etsy shop, and I have a lot of good descriptions of like flavor, how big they get, why I love this variety compared to others, what makes it special or different. I try to put a lot of information in the descriptions because that kind of stuff matters to me. I like experimenting with different varieties and finding out the differences, and you know, just like, why should I buy this tomato variety over the other? So I try to explain very well in the details. Usually I ship same day because, well, my business is from my home, and as soon as you guys put in an order, I see it. Like, I get a notification, and usually within an hour or two, I've got it packaged and the label printed up. And I use United States Postal Service. Typically, if you're like in California, the other side of the country than I'm in Florida, I don't know, 3 to 5 business days maybe that it'll get to you. Yeah, I'm very quick because I see when the orders pop through. And I personally, when I buy something online, And I'm like waiting to get that notification that it's shipped. Like it's almost like Christmas time. So I get real happy when I see that stuff is shipped. So I try to do the same for my customers, right? You got seeds the next day? Okay. You must be in Florida then. Oh, hi. I answered your question. But so yeah, so all of my seeds on there, I do try to, you know, give descriptions like why this one over the next one. Um yeah. I know that when I was starting out gardening, it's overwhelming. Like, you know, you go buy seeds and there's like, I don't know, 20 to choose from. Like, which one do I choose, you know? So I like, personally, I watch a lot of content, YouTube videos, all that, about different varieties and stuff. You know, it's something that I like to experiment with, and I like to pass that information down to other people. You know, like, I've experimented with tons and tons of cucumber varieties, but there's one in particular that blasts all the rest away, and that's the China Jade. It's a, I know I'm going to butcher this word, okay? Don't make fun of me. Parthenogenic, it means that each female flower is self-pollinating. So that instantly increases your yields. And I get tons and tons of cucumbers from that particular variety. Like it outpaces all the other ones I've ever tried growing. And that's, I think that one along with the Bait Alpha are the only two that I have in my Etsy shop because quite honestly, they're the best. They're the best I've ever grown. So I'm not going to recommend anything else. Like just go get the best. It's tried and proven. If it grows in my crazy disease and pest filled Florida garden and survived and produced well for me, it's good. It's tested. It's passed the test. So yeah, so planting your seeds, you're going to stick it in its spot, turn the lights on. The lights, again, when you're buying lights, make sure they're 5,000 lumens or more. These particular ones are 5,500 lumens. I only turn on the lights during the day while I'm awake. So when I wake up in the morning, I'll turn them on, and when I go to sleep at night, I'll turn them off. That's probably giving them a good, what, like 12 hours, right? You're probably awake for like 12 hours straight in the day, usually, of sunlight. That's a lot, not sunlight, but artificial light. That's a lot of light. That's a lot of light for nice, healthy growth. I have never heard anything like too much light can damage it. I mean, I'm sure it does, right? I do believe they need a rest period, just like people do. You know, plants need a rest period, and that's what the nighttime is for them. So I don't recommend keeping the lights on the whole time. 12 hours is more than plenty, I'm sure. So I wouldn't go over like 12 hours. But yeah, I get very healthy tomato plants this way. I just started, to be honest with you guys, just started this whole growth setup with these lights a year ago. Prior to that, I was starting all my seeds outdoors and on my patio, but I would have poor germination because of the funguses, molds, bacterias. I've had critters dig out my seeds. I forgot to bring them inside and it rained and it washed all my seeds out and destroyed everything. Just a lot of factors that could make seed starting unsuccessful for you and much more difficult, right? And I don't want to waste my time or money. Seeds are money. These supplies and all this is money. So I found a year ago when I decided to give it a try and, you know, start seeds indoors. This is in my covered patio, but I do start seeds indoors during the wintertime completely. Just the health and the vigor and the quality of those transplants was beyond any other method I've tried, or starting them outdoors or whatever. You know, but obviously a lot of people can't start seeds indoors, or maybe you don't even have a covered patio or covered area either. So just do what you can, okay? Just do whatever you can. The most important thing is just get out there and grow something, even if it's just one thing. Seed starting, if you can grasp that as a gardening skill, I mean, that opens the doors for so many unique varieties and things that you will never find in the grocery store or in your local nurseries. The local nurseries tend to have the same couple varieties of things over and over and over again. Especially when it comes to tomatoes. There are thousands of tomato varieties. there is a tomato for every color. There is a tomato for every single flavor profile. I love to cook too, so gardening and cooking, they go hand in hand. You want to have high quality ingredients, ingredients that taste really good, ingredients that are fun to cook with, things that you can't find in the grocery store or whatever, and things you would never get to eat maybe in your whole life unless you knew someone who grew it or you grew it yourself. So seed starting, I am a huge proponent of that. I believe it just makes the gardening experience in general just so much more worth it and interesting. So if you can grasp those skills, I mean, it's going to help you with your garden and saving money too. I mean, obviously, you're starting your own seeds. Transplants, I went into Home Depot and they're like $5 almost now for the little like half cups. Like, that's insane. That's insane. And like, I'm trying really hard to grow all of my family's like produce needs. I'm not there yet. I don't have a lot of land, and you know, I'm now expanding. I have that second garden, right, where I have 2.5 acres now to play with, but it's going to take me a while to get that built up and get it cranking out with high volume of vegetables and things like that. But my end goal is to grow enough produce and vegetables and stuff for my own family. So that would be a lot of money buying transplants, each and every single transplant. So definitely seed starting, if you can get that down packed, is the way to go, way to save money in the long run, and you get to save your seed year after year after year. They acclimate to your garden, so year after year you're getting slightly better seed that's more acclimated to your garden and its growing conditions and things like that. So you know, I just why I love seed starting, why I am a huge proponent of heirloom seeds in particular. Hybrids, to be honest, I mean, I've grown hybrids too. I don't see a difference. I don't see a difference in a hybrid tomato versus a heirloom tomato. They both produce the same. They both have like the same pests. They're gonna get attacked by the same pests no matter what. They're gonna get the same diseases. So, but I do find that heirloom tomatoes by far blow away the flavor and the texture part of it. So, you know, some hybrids are amazing. Like, there's an Alexandria squash hybrid tomato. I mean, not tomato, zucchini. Extremely disease resistant, and very productive. And that one I will recommend to other people. It's one of the few ones I will recommend. And Sun Gold or Sun Sugar are both hybrid tomatoes that the flavor of those are amazing. They really are. You should try growing those at least once. But besides that, like, that's it. Everything else I grow is heirloom. So that is a myth, I believe, that heirlooms don't grow as well or produce as well as a hybrid and all of that. That's a complete myth. Heirlooms have been bred and passed down from generation to generation between families or whatever because they love the flavor of that tomato or whatever. So they are bred more for their flavor. And that's what's in mind with the heirlooms. Hybrids are bred typically for high increased production and marketability, right? To harvest it and send it to market. So they don't really care about flavor that much. They care more about the looks, that it doesn't crack and that kind of thing, more so than actual flavor. So when it comes to tomatoes, hybrid heirlooms all the way. Okay, don't think that your heirlooms aren't going to do that good because they're not hybrid or whatever. Anyone else have any more questions? We have 3 minutes here. So yeah, if you're in zones 8 and 9, right now is the time to start your seeds for tomatoes. So get those started. We're going to transplant them depending on, you know, how big they get. Sometimes my tomatoes are ready at 6 weeks or sometimes 8 weeks. It just depends. So we're going to transplant in September. If you're in zones like 10 and 11, you're about like 2 weeks behind me a little bit because your areas stay warmer longer. So you're about like 2 weeks behind me. You can start them now. Just know you're gonna plant them towards the more end of September or maybe the first week of October. It just depends. But you know, if you start them now, you'll just have to kind of wait with them a little bit. What else am I planting now? Well, first off, the person in zone 10A, not a month, I would say like 2 weeks. You're about 2 weeks behind me. So in about 2 weeks, start them and you'll be fine. What else am I planting now? So it is the middle of July. I am still starting seeds for Seminole pumpkins, Everglades tomatoes, pigeon peas, also known as guandules. I'm starting seeds for all my like big squashes varieties, like Get, Okosamin, banana squash, like these squashes that get like really big. Jarandel, if I'm saying that right, Guatemalan blue, like there's a lot of the bigger squashes. I'm starting those for seed now. Also in these solo cups because they get big and they're happier in a bigger size container like this. I'm still starting seeds for cucumbers. The Asian varieties of cucumbers, they grow great all straight through the summer. China Jade is my favorite one for growing through the summer. Yard long beans. So traditional green beans, like bush beans and vine pole beans, they're not too happy during the heat of our summer and the rain here. Every time I've tried to grow those, they get a lot of disease and stuff. So it's better to transition to something like yard long beans. And if you've never grown that before, please give it a try at least once. They are very long. They are a different genus. They're not like the same group or family, whatever species as bush beans or pole beans. They're a little bit different, but they are very long. They taste the same in my opinion. Their texture is a little bit more crunchier, and you just chop them up and use them just as you would green beans or whatever. But they are more of a tropical plant or species or whatever. So they handle our heat, rain, all that like a champ. So summertime I transition to those. Once things cool down, like in September, I'll start again sowing seeds for the bush beans and the pole beans because I like to get fresh beans in time for Thanksgiving. So that's kind of like my plan. When do I start the patty pan? So patty pan, I have some growing right now, but they're not doing well in this summer and rain. The zucchinis, they get a lot of diseases. They get a lot of powdery mildew. The pickle worms, or the green worms with the white stripe on the back, are called pickle worms. And whatever other worms, right? They like attack them at this time of the year. So the patty pans that I have now, I started those from seed, I want to say like in February, and they were planted in my garden around March or April. And they've produced for me a lot by now. It's fine if they die. That's just it. But I can start those again probably middle of August, end of August, so that I can transplant in the garden end of September or October when our climate gets more mild in the temperatures and the pests start dying down. We get less rain. The rain, a lot of excess rain causes proliferation of the diseases, the leaf diseases, all that. So we have a little bit less of that during, fall, winter, and spring. So that makes it a lot easier to grow, squashes, zucchini, and all that stuff. So I'm not going to start seeds for that particular variety right now. That'll be a little bit later. I'm also starting seeds for flowers, zinnias, like almost all my flowers. I already grew this stuff earlier this year, and the ones that are out there are kind of starting to dwindle down a little bit. So I'm restarting a new batch of flowers. It will not get cold here, at least in my zone 9B, until like the week of Christmas is usually, I track this stuff. Usually the week of Christmas is our first cold front. So those flowers, we still have, 5 months? They will start blooming around 2-3 month mark, so you're going to get blooms and have them for a long time before the cold comes and actually kills them. So all my flowers right now, Tromboncino rampicante squash as well. Loofahs, you can probably, if you like to grow loofah gourd, you can fit in a crop right now if you start the seed now, because they don't like the cold either. Once that cold front comes in December, they're not too happy. So you can do that. You can possibly fit in some peppers. Peppers take a long time to start producing though. They will take 4 or 5 months of growth to start outputting. And then again, once those cold fronts come, they're not very happy. But peppers are perennial plants. So if you can keep them covered, or some people even yank them out and bring them indoors in a pot or something during the wintertime just to keep that plant alive, you can replant in your garden once the cold goes away. So if you take care of those pepper plants, they're perennial, and you can start seeds right now, and you'll be fine. You'll be harvesting. I'm starting all my tomatoes right now. I'm going to start pretty much the rest of everything that I want to grow for fall, winter, and spring next month in August. The more colds, the crops that like really require cold, they're happier in the cold, like snow peas, regular peas, spinach, all the lettuces. I have not found a lettuce that's happy growing in summertime in Florida ever. Not even Jericho lettuce that's said to be very high heat tolerance. The bok choys, all of those kind of like leafy greens. I will be starting those from seed probably like more in September, because I like to start planting those, like putting them into the garden in October when you can really feel like the difference in the temperatures. The temperatures drop a little bit. So that's kind of like, I'm pacing. Right now I'm doing my tomatoes, then I'm going to do some more flowers and all those big squashes and some little pumpkins and stuff like that. You can still direct sow yard-long beans. You could grow the Asian varieties of cucumbers right now, still get a crop out of it. You could grow corn. The only thing with corn, it's a hard crop to grow here in Florida because they are very susceptible to the corn earworm. They're like these brown worms. They will start chewing out of the outside of the cob and make its way in. Once they get in that cob, forget it. Like, if you're going to spray stuff, it's not going to hit them, and your crop is gone. So you really have to monitor the corn. You can grow them. Like, I grow corn here January all the way to September is the last time I will direct sow seeds, or however I decide to start seeds. So sometimes I start them in seed trays, actually. But you can grow them if you're in Florida and it's warm, almost year round, except you need to be ready for those worms. So for corn in particular, I recommend spinosad. Here's some right here. Had it ready. Spinosad. So there's BT and spinosad. BT stands for Bacillus thuringiensis. It's a bacteria. It works great against chewing insects. Only really the chewing insects, because how this product works, you spray the leaves, the chewing insect, like the worms, eat the leaves, they digest it, and it disrupts their system or something like that and kills them. So that's how these products work. That's how BT works. Spinosad is like BT with the added benefit of killing on contact. And to me, it's a little bit of a stronger stuff, because the corn earworm, I was using BT. BT worked great on, the pickle worms and all the other worms that like chew my cucumbers, melons, and squashes, but it wasn't really working against the corn earworm. Like, they're a little bit more tougher type of worm. Spinosad kills on contact as well. So I noticed when I used spinosad against the corn earworms in particular, it knocked them out. It worked great. So I, in particular, recommend spinosad for corn. Whiteflies, to be honest with you, I haven't really had a whitefly issue yet in my garden. If I did, I've seen them on my peppers, so, but not too much, but I've seen them on my pepper plants, and so spinosad or BT isn't going to affect them because they don't chew the leaves, right? They're not a chewing insect, so that's not going to work. Neem oil might work, but I find in Florida, in my garden, neem doesn't really work. I think the pests we have are some kind of monstrous variety descended from, I don't know, they're tougher, I feel. So neem, and neem is an oil, it's really hot here, we get very strong sun, it burns my plants, it burns the leaves. So I don't use neem oil in my garden for those reasons. But please, a lot of Florida gardeners and gardeners in hot climates like mine definitely use it. And if it works in your garden, great, use it. That's good stuff. So the whiteflies, I would probably try to kill their eggs and disrupt their life cycle. So I would spray the leaves with hydrogen peroxide and water, because that disinfects. It'll probably kill the leaves and the little tiny babies before they become like the adult fly stage. And you would have to apply like every X amount of days, I don't know, like 5 to 10 days, depending on the cycle of those eggs, to knock out that population and really disrupt that egg cycle. So I have done that to my peppers. They had a little bit of that like on them, and it worked a little bit. It did help them. If you don't know what zone you're in, your garden zone, there's a website, just Google it, just like garden zone by zip code. And you put in your zip code and it will show a map and it'll tell you what zone you're in. Now, garden zone, the only thing that tells you is how cold your area could get in any given winter time, right? So I think for my zone 9B, it could get as low as 29 degrees or 25 degrees. It could happen, but I've not seen that happen in my garden. And the lowest I've seen is like 30, 31, 32. I have not seen it drop that low, but there is the potential, a possibility that it can. So that's all that zone data tells you. It just tells you how cold your area could get in the wintertime, which is important for deciding what plants you're going to grow. Because some plants are more cold hardy and can take more cold than others. So it's important to know when you're selecting your plants. But it doesn't give you other information that I think is important, knowing the climate and your own garden, like knowing your specific garden, your own little microclimate, like the rain factor, the humidity, the water, how intense the sun is in your particular state. Florida's full sun is like beyond full sun in northern states. Like it's insane. It's like too much. So when a plant says full sun in Florida, full sun, it probably could do okay with some afternoon shade too, but nothing beats knowing your own garden. So, but the zone information is important to know. It's a good starting point. It helps you select proper plants. So you know that that plant will survive through your winter, whatever that is. But definitely, I had and I still do, I have a planner for the whole year. It's broken down by weeks. I will take notes of significant things that happen in my garden with the weather. Like, every time a cold front comes through, how cold did it actually get and what was affected. So the last, few years, none of my stuff gets affected. Like, not even my tomatoes. I'm growing my tomatoes through the winter. And they don't die, they don't get affected, they don't even get, like, damaged. Nothing in my garden actually gets damaged. So when the weather says it's going to hit 35 degrees, I'm not panicking. If you're part of, like, gardening, Facebook groups, I'm part of a lot of them, especially here in Florida, everyone's panicking. And they're, like, posting their pictures, like, oh my God, I got to go cover all my plants. Oh my God. And I'm just like, I know I don't have to. I just know that from experience in tracking my own data. And, but this year was the coldest cold front I've ever seen. In the middle of January, it got down to 30 degrees in my garden, and it lingered. It also the cold has to linger in your garden for a certain period of time to actually damage your plants too. So let's say it drops into 30, but it's only there for like an hour, the hour right before sunrise, right? That's usually the coldest time of the night is those hours right before sunrise. It's not really going to do much. It's not. But if it's 30 and it's been like that the whole night, you're going to see damage. I saw damage. My mango flowers, my mango was flowering at that time. They all got damaged. I lost all the flowers, but it did produce another flowering crop, so we're fine there. I had tomatoes in my garden. They were seedlings that I had just planted in January. I started a second batch December 1st, transplanted about a month later. And they didn't die, but they did have damage on the leaves. And I also have some Rollinia deliciosa fruit trees. I have 2 of them. And those are super tropicals. It's probably the most tropical thing that I grow on my property. Once the weather gets below 40, they're affected. They start losing leaves, they get damaged. With that cold front that came in the middle of January, I lost half of those trees, like the upper half of those trees, dead. I had to cut them all down. They're happy now. They're growing a lot. They're beautiful trees. But yeah, those are the only 2 that I'm actually concerned with when the weather gets cold. But I know, obviously you guys are in different zones than me. Your winter is going to be a little bit different. I have people in the same zone as me, but down the street, and they get more cold damage than I do because my garden also wraps around my house. So my house emits a lot of warmth. It keeps the temperatures maybe a degree or two warmer. And I also have privacy fencing that blocks out the winds that deposit frost on the ground and on my plants. So they're protected. And I'm lucky like that. I didn't plan it like that. I just noticed that's what happens. Whereas somebody that doesn't have privacy fencing, has maybe more land, and you have your plants farther away, they got damaged and they had things die. So it takes time learning your garden and knowing, what's going to happen. All right, guys, this live session was slated to be 1 hour long, and we started at 6, so I'm going to wrap this up. If you have any last questions, let me know right now, and I'll try and answer your questions. Otherwise, I will see you guys again next week on Sunday to check the progress of your seedlings. So hopefully you guys started sowing your tomato seeds. I'm going to finish sowing mine. And in about 3 days, if you have a good setup and technique and all that, you should get some sprouted seedlings. And next week on Sunday, they should be maybe like this big. So we'll just check in with each other, see what they look like. If you're having any issues, we can discuss that or answer any of your gardening questions. Doesn't matter. But that's a plan. If you want a full schedule of these TikTok live sessions that I'm going to be doing, if you want a list of all the varieties of tomatoes I'm going to be growing this season, maybe you want to grow the same ones as me, and a list of like recommended supplies, there is an email sign up button in my bio, and I will send you an email with all of that information. There's also a discount code. I think it's SAVE15, SAVE15. If you want to save 15% off your order from my Etsy seed shop, and I will ship those to you right away. Maybe you want some tomatoes to sow right now. I will ship those to you very, very quickly so you can get started. But thank you so much, guys. This was the first time I've ever gone live. I hope this information was useful to you, and have a great rest of your day. And I hope to see you guys next week on Sunday as well. Bye.